Hello and welcome to Emirates Old Trafford. Now today we have got a very special panel for you today. We're celebrating women in sport in this incredible industry, and we've got plenty to celebrate as it's a T20 double header today with the women headlining for the very first time. It's a very special occasion and we're so excited to have this too, just to add to all of the excitement. Now, I'm Zara Connolly and I'm really delighted to be joined by some very inspirational women with me today. Now, we're going to kick things off with our business panel. So let's introduce them all one by one first. So we have got Angela Hodgson, Sales Director for Lancashire Cricket. Welcome. We have also got Annie Hale, Human Resources Director from Manchester United. Now we have got Sarah Todd, Chief Executive Officer, Trafford Council. Amanda Brandaris from Head of Sportsbreak, sportsbreak.com. And finally, we have got Claire Butters, Sales and Marketing Director from Sale Sharks. So how's everyone doing? They're all right?
On a breakfast.
Yeah.
It's all right. Well, we're absolutely delighted to have you here with us today, especially on this huge occasion. Mm-hmm. Now, let's kick things off, shall we then? So I'm going to come to you first, Angela. Now, Lancashire Cricket, we've made solid progress so far. Mm-hmm. The inclusion of women in sport, it's been phenomenal. I mean, just to boast about a few things that we've got 2 out of 9 board members that are female, and we've got the executive team as well, 4 females out of 7. I mean, although the club acknowledges that there is more to be done, it's amazing what we've done so far. And what advice would you give to young women getting into sport?
Okay, so firstly, on our board we have Rachel Downey, who is MD at Manchester Life, and then Sarah Tompkins, CSR and Marketing Director over at the new Co-op Life that's going to be open in the next couple of years. And they're really inspirational to have on the board, actually. Really intelligent women, level-headed, calm, collective. So as an exec team, they provide us with a lot of support and direction to make sure that we as a club are going heading in the right direction. And then, as an exec team, it's great. You know, there is 4 of us, 4 women on the exec team. So we have Angela Lowes, who's come over from Sunderland Football Club, who's our Chief Financial Officer, Joanne Hunt, who's been in the club a long time, our HR Director, Liz Cooper, who's come from the Rico Arena over to the club, and then myself with, a kind of past history, I guess, in football, Bolton Wanderers and Man City Football Club. So collectively between us, we do have a lot of experience in sport. And I think from a club perspective, it's great to see that the club has committed to having equality and diversity on the exec team. And I think that sends out a strong message to the staff as well that, there is that opportunity for progression as well. 3 of us were internal promotions as well, which is fantastic. And I think we have a lot of amazing, strong women working within the business, and it demonstrates a pathway for them coming through as well. And I think having that kind of mixed gender balance on the exec team, it allows a lot of debate, a lot of kind of differing opinions, because we all come from different kind of backgrounds and lifestyles. There's a lot of healthy debate, and I think it's important that we have that to kind of grow the business and look at things from completely different perspectives. I think as well, it kind of demonstrates as an exec team, we all have families, some children are grown up, some are not. I've got 2 young children myself who are 6 and 11, so it is crazy, but it also kind of shows to women that you can have a young family and you can also be incredibly successful within your career as well. I think businesses need to be flexible and recognise that as well. There are occasions where I need to do the school run in the morning, pick them up in the evening. You just work around that, as long as you've got a hard work ethic and, you're good at what you do and, you work really, really hard. Everybody is capable of doing it. And then I think, again, having that representation, it shows that from an employer perspective as well, that there is opportunity. If you start working at the club, that we take it seriously in that sense. So there's a lot of positives in having that gender diversity at that level, and certainly at our leadership level, it's exactly the same. And then I think for women getting into sport, it is incredibly hard work, and it is a lot of fun. You know, working around these live events is such a high. You know, whether that be international T20 concerts, day-to-day business events, there's a real buzz about the place. And there's nothing better than that, but behind the scenes, it is hard graft. And you've got to be prepared to put the work in, gain the experience, take in as much as you can, learn from really positive role models within the business, also learn from the bad as well to shape what you don't want to be. So I think it's about, soaking up everything that you can possibly do, and collaboration is really, really important with all of your peers. I think, you know, one of our goals is unified, and the important thing is, you know, working collectively and understanding everybody's perspectives to kind of make sure that, again, you get the best results. And I think as well, as a leader, you've got to learn to delegate. You can't take everything on board yourself. You know, I've got a really, really experienced team, and I don't pretend to know everything about everything, but I hope that I can develop support and lead them in the best possible way to make the right decisions as a business. So I think as a woman, particularly with a young family, I have to do that more than ever, because I've got to learn to work as efficiently as I possibly can. I like to do things quickly and efficiently and get to the point as quickly as possible so I can move on to the next thing. And I think most of all, just enjoy the journey, because, you know, I'm really incredibly lucky to work in this amazing place. You know, we have the T20 season upon us at the moment. We'll be going into a really, really busy concert period as well. Then internationals, 100 balls. So there's a real mix, and obviously there's all the business events and the hotel events that operate day to day as well. So it is exciting, it's energetic, it's got a real buzz about it, but you also need that energy, you know, behind it as well. And I think support is the biggest thing as well, you know, make sure that you all support each other. But so yeah, I'm incredibly impressed, but I think the key thing for any women trying to get into sport is hard graft, you know, and we can do it. We're made of tough stuff at the end of the day. So yeah, there you go.
We are made of tough stuff. Thank you very, very much for that. Now, Annie, I want to speak to you as well. You know, given today's climate around inclusivity, you work at Manchester United. Now, in terms of recruitment of a more gender balanced workforce, what challenges have you faced in your role?
So we still struggle with some of the more traditional roles, I think, in hiring. So if I look back at the last season, we've just obviously finished our season just now, and we hired about 40% women. But behind those stats, actually, you looked a bit deeper, and some of the traditional roles, they are still hard to sort of get that balance within teams. So traditionally, those around first team men's typically are male, and then typically women fall into the more administrative roles. And as well, in some of the sort of, actually sales, we're quite lucky in terms of having a very, very balanced mix. But some of the support functions around sales, so the partnerships function, actually really sort of struggle to get females into those roles. And when we dig a bit deeper, we've tried to capture data to start with and then dig behind it. And actually, you know, those roles, they require a lot of travel. I think people perceive that then, just like you're saying, as being, well, I can't do that if I'm a mother. You know, when we actually try and break it down, we can hire better into those roles. I think, you know, in terms of our efforts, we have tried to be very conscious about those things that might stop women from applying, whether that's perception, it might be where we advertise roles. So we look to partner with different job boards, you know, third parties that can help us along. And actually, just like you're saying about role models, it's really interesting. If you look at sales, which traditionally, I think in football clubs can be seen as quite a male, you know, you're sort of selling, sort of B2B selling, if you like, for football. Actually, we have a fantastic female leader there. So it's you then look at the data, funnily enough, her team are really balanced. You know, she has this really great gender mix across leadership and other roles. So it does make a difference, I think, if you have that role model there, and we really see that. Looking at the other end of the scale, we are really conscious about how we hire into our early talent programs. So we're lucky enough to have apprenticeship programs, intern programs, and because of our brand and who we are, we get inundated with actually young people saying, it'd be my dream to come work for Manchester United, so we're really lucky there. But we do ensure that we've got this really balanced mix. And I think what gives me sort of optimism is that definitely we span sort of 5 different generations in our workforce. It's not unusual that we have people in their 80s working for us still. But where we see younger people coming in, actually those biases haven't been developed so much. And so we are seeing younger people coming in and really interested in some more, male traditional roles, or where we're sort of slightly male heavier. And so I'm quite optimistic about the future, actually, in terms of people doing away with some of that bias. The more they understand and the more we put out some more balanced views around what people in those jobs can be, in terms of it doesn't have to be a male or a female, So we're certainly seeing progress. As I said, we're still at 40-60, so we've got, another 10% to go. But yeah, I think our sort of principle in looking at this has always been, data first, reasons behind the data, understand more, and then trying to find solutions into that. I think the last thing I'd say is that we've been really lucky to be supported by, third parties who have wanted to work with us. So, for us, there's Women in Football who, have given us some great ideas, and we're looking at leadership pledges at the moment as to how people individually can look at their team and say, actually, why don't I have females represented in this side or in this level, or enough? And they're making some pledges and really thinking about what they personally can do. So, working with those third parties, some brilliant ones out there, it really helps us actually to move forward.
Well, thank you very much for that. Some great insight there. Now, Sarah there, so culture starts from the top down, and you've been championing that women in leadership role. Now, how proud of you that Trafford is not only well blessed with world-class sport, but also amazing women's sport as well. It's really growing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I'm hugely proud, obviously, but I probably would start there just thinking about business with the glass ceiling, which we all hear about and which, people think, is this a bit of a cliche? Is it a myth? Some of you in the room will have heard the story 6 or 7 years ago, I think 2015, of the top 100 companies in the country. There were more Johns as chief executives than there were women. So 17 Johns and 7 women, which is staggering. Roll forward 7 years to 2022, the situation has improved. There are now 8 women chief execs. So we have got a long way to go. And I think when you look at sport, there's certainly a sense that has been a situation that's existed in sport. But as you say, it definitely feels like it's changing. Much more recognition now of women's sport and certainly popularity of women's sport, as well as of sporting leaders. I certainly see that in Trafford, and I think this panel demonstrates that, we really punch above our weight, to use another sporting analogy, in Trafford in that respect. And it brings loads of benefits, it really does. And if you think about the boardroom, women in the boardroom or in leadership teams, if you think about institutions or companies that have got people around the table who are all the same background, all the same gender, then, it really follows that you're going to get that narrowness of view, of perspective, and of experiences as well. But bring in some diversity, bring in some gender balance. And it isn't just about gender, of course. Diversity is about making sure that you have got and you represent sexuality, you represent disability, you represent ethnicity, amongst other things. But you bring that dynamism into a team when you bring that diversity, and the breadth of experiences and perspectives are just so much deeper. And therefore, your ability to relate to your employees as a business, your greatest asset, without a shadow of a doubt, but also to your customers as well. And that puts you, I think, in a place where you've got the leading edge over your rivals and actually are capable of being a better company, a more successful company. And I think we see that in our sporting institutions here. And I think that brings massive benefits, as we can see around us today. for Trafford. Probably also to talk a little bit about sporting leaders on the pitch as well, because I think those of you who know Trafford have probably got a view about Trafford and its population. We've actually got really significant health inequalities in Trafford. So if I were to say Annie was born in and lives in Bowden, and Amanda, get the names right and the right order, was born in and lives in Partington. They live 5.5 miles apart. But actually, Amanda is probably going to have 16 years less healthy life expectancy, which is a staggering statistic. So you think about the things we need to do to help women and girls be more healthy, and being active and being fit, most definitely right up there. It's massively important, both for physical but also for mental health as well. And sporting heroes are absolutely part of what inspires people to really get engaged in sport, and having our institutions and our sporting leaders both in the boardroom, in our leadership teams and on the pitch, I think brings massive benefits, certainly inspiring the next generation to come through and emulate our heroes. And I think probably just to finish, 3 or 4 people to mention in terms of those sporting leaders on the pitch, one of whom I'm really, really proud of, but very proud of them all. So Kate Cross, so inspirational bowler, club and country. She was born a few miles away from here in Manchester. Half a mile up the road, head to the other Old Trafford and Manchester United. Ella Toone, leading midfielder, international player, and she was born in Wigan, in Tyldesley, to be absolutely accurate. And then Katie Zellum, who is, I think, is club captain as well at United. The biggest, I'm a City fan, biggest club in the country is still Man United, in the world actually, so I can admit that. Katie was born where I live in Failsworth, a few miles past the Etihad Stadium. So brilliant local sporting heroes. They'll have had their own inspirations as they've been coming through the ranks, and they're now heroes for women and girls in Trafford, but also in Greater Manchester and beyond. And I think if that inspires women and girls to go and have a kickabout, or if it inspires them to go to the pool or the gym, or actually if it makes them aspire to be elite athletes, doesn't really matter, does it? We're going to have more active and healthy women in Trafford and beyond, and that has got to be something to celebrate, hasn't it? So there you go. Very proud indeed.
Thank you very much. There are some amazing points there, and so important as well, so thank you very much for that. Now, Amanda, Sports Break, they are a very valuable asset to Lancashire Cricket Club, a very loyal partner. Now, how do you think that Thunder is a very much commercially proposition, like it's a very valid one and one that's very important to have? What do you make of it?
I think, obviously, Lancashire Cricket have been a long-standing partner of ours, both as we are as Sports Breaks, and prior a lot of us came from Thomas Cook before that all disappeared. So a great partnership. So it was an absolute no-brainer for us to continue that partnership as Sports Breaks and Destination Sport, but to then extend that further with the Thunder team. It's such an exciting time for women's cricket, women's sport in general at the moment. You're getting so much exposure. So many commercial opportunities that have never been there before, and we absolutely want to be part of that and see a really, really positive opportunity there for us. We are the shirt sponsors. It's the first time we've ever done that as a business, regardless of sport, regardless of gender. So to be able to do that with a women's team, for me personally, as a woman who has sort of progressed through a travel business and been fortunate enough to be part of the sport industry at the same time, is absolutely fantastic. I mean, the girls are such great ambassadors for the club, such great ambassadors for cricket and just for sport, in the UK in general. And it's, it's our privilege and our honour to be so closely associated with the club.
It's great to have you part of it, and especially having sponsors on a part of women's sport as well, isn't it? It's amazing.
Yeah, no, it's a great thing to be part of, and I think growing up, it was always such a boys' thing. But to actually see everything changing in front of our eyes and actually being able to be part of that and to be involved in that is such a privilege. I'm, one of 2 girls, brought up mainly by my dad after losing my mum quite young. So, sort of in quite a male-dominated environment, really. So, I would like to think that's maybe given me a little bit of a leg up, because he's sort of really pushed us and made sure that we were aware that we can do anything that we want. It doesn't matter girl or boy, it doesn't matter what, who you are, you can absolutely be and do anything that you want to do if you work hard enough, and if you get your head down, and if you want it badly enough. And me and my sister have both been successful in our respective fields, off the back of the support that we've had. So I think if there's more people like my dad out there, then we'll absolutely have a really good run of women to be there and support men, and men to support women across the world, really. And everyone can do much better for it.
Well, that's amazing. Thank you for telling us that. Now, let's move on about Sale Sharks now. So, Claire, rugby's seen as a bit of a macho, male-dominated sport, just to say it a bit, isn't it? Now, what have you and colleagues had to do to break down those barriers in the community and encourage young girls to take part?
I think rugby has a perception of being a macho sport, but it isn't really. I think we might have said maybe 15 years ago the same thing about boxing or the same thing about football, and we're about to host the Euros. We've got the Rugby World Cup coming, the women's, in end of this year. So I think it's a perception that we can shift. I would just say rugby's probably 10 or 15 years behind other sports, and I think more kind of focus on women's sport and more coverage on TV and more events that people can support and get behind, I think it's really important to shake that off. I think Sale Sharks, so I've been at Sale Sharks a year, and I'd say we were probably quite guilty of being that maybe more male-dominated, aggressive environment, just because that's, I guess, how rugby has been. So the last year we've really worked on, I think you touched on it, on culture and starting to think about who we want to be as a club and the kind of people we want in our club and the kind of environment. And for a woman being in that environment, obviously it has its nice perks being in a rugby club, but certainly being a woman in that environment can be quite tough, and you can feel quite intimidated maybe. But the culture that we've created is really rooted in being a better person. And when you start with something as fundamental as that, you're kind of empowering everybody to take responsibility for their own behaviour and their actions. So we're kind of like an oil tanker, like turning quite slowly, but we're getting there. And I think a big part of that being a better person is to inspire young girls into rugby. You've got to have role models. So Lauren's up on stage soon from our women's team, and we set our women's team up in 2020, and we're really new, and we're learning and developing, and we're attracting new women's players in all the time. We're very lucky that we've got Katie Daly-McLean heading up, and we've got Rachel Taylor from the Welsh international team, really supporting that group of girls. But it's tough, like we were talking about it before. The women's rugby game is still behind men's in the sense it's semi-professional, so these girls are going to work every day and then coming to training. But creating those role models really helps our grassroots programs. And I think as a business now, we really try and encourage girls into the game and shake off that perception that it is aggressive, because it isn't. It's actually a really technical game. It requires intelligence, athleticism. And I think having role models, we talk about for younger girls, if you can see it, you can be it. So if we have a team that you can see, and you can see them playing, and you can see strong women in that team, you can see strong women in the business side of the club, I think that really helps younger girls kind of come through and build that confidence. So we have loads of programmes still in their infancy in primary schools. We have grassroots rugby programmes, rugby camps specifically for girls. And for a lot of, like some of those programmes, girls have never played rugby in their life, and they're coming into those programmes because it's just girls and because they don't feel intimidated, and it is kind of through the lens of Sale Sharks culture. So it is more about like teaching life skills, I guess. So we root it all in our values of, we talk about togetherness as a club, and then so when you go into grassroots level, how do you be a really good teammate? So really focusing in on those girls and giving them the confidence and life skills, but through that Sale Sharks lens. So that's kind of, I guess, where we are as a club. And I think you talked about diversity in the workplace, and I think there's work for us to do there, definitely, but I don't think that's a product of not wanting to. I think it's more, like I think you said, the traditional roles, that it's more that men gravitate to wanting to coach a men's team. But I think, as we head into the next season and beyond, I think it's exciting times for our club, and I think, the women's team is definitely going to go places, and Lauren will talk more to that when she's up on stage.
That's amazing. Sounds like there's some amazing work being done at Sales Sharks and looking forward to the future to hear what else happens. So that is it then for our business panel for now. We have got our sport one coming shortly, but a big round of applause for these amazing inspirational women. So thank you very much for joining us. Now we're going to do a quick mic check with a lovely video in the background or whatever. So thank you very much for joining us. And now we've got another panel coming up soon as well, and we'll take a look at this wonderful video. So that was our Women in Business panel there. We've just seen this amazing video of Lancashire Thunder and all the great work that they're doing. But now it's time to introduce the Women in Sport panel. So we'll kick things off first of all. So we've got Alice Clark. Make sure you join us on stage. Wicket keeper and batter for Thunder. Take a seat. You're welcome. And now next on stage we've got Julie Ferguson, brand digital strategist from Manchester United. Now we've also got Lauren Delaney, had a little bit of an introduction earlier we did from Claire from Sales Shark. And now we've also got Beth Barrett-Wild too. Make sure you get to stage, head of the 100. So thank you very much for joining us. Now how are you all doing? Did you enjoy that business panel first of all?
Great, it's interesting. Great.
Good to hear some interesting stories, isn't it? That's what it's all about, because it's great to have so many people here all in one place for it. Now, I'm going to kick things off with you, Alice. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you. How are you?
All right. How are you feeling about this double header?
I'm very excited to get out there and watch my girls in action.
God, it's amazing to have you supporting it too.
Crazy.
Now, I've got to ask you now, it's been well publicised about Lancashire Cricket's investment, with the women's team, making it an elite programme too. And if you haven't seen it, there was this amazing first ever pre-season tour, the men and the women. How did that feel in Dubai?
Dubai was a crazy experience. It's something that sort of I've grown up playing cricket since I was like 5 years old or something, inspired by my brother and my dad, both played, and it's something you watch all the men do when you were younger. You think, wow, like not even just cricket, like I'm a massive Manchester United fan as well, which fits in very nicely. You see men, professional athletes do it, and you just think like that's like it's just something to do that. And go off and you go, it was amazing facilities, you get to treat like royalty getting on the plane, and you get to Dubai, and the facilities that we got put up in the hotel to the training facilities, and everything about it was just like, it was like a fairy tale experience almost, without sounding corny. And most importantly as well, it allowed us as a team to improve and get better and get used to that sort of more professional environment. Because that's where you hope that the game goes to, with more contracts coming in. It felt like a stepping stone. It felt like that next step to, like women's cricket has come so far in the last couple of years, and it's just stepping up year after year after year. And like you see that from the inside, you feel it, and the support from Lancs of course as well. Things like today, I mean, to have a headline slot in a T20 blast and say, do you know what, we're going to put the women there. Men can go first, women, we'll put you in our headline slot. It just, the support that we feel within the team that we get, it gives us the confidence to go out and to play cricket and to get to training and work hard. And it's a serious graft that the girls put in over winter, and to go to Dubai, and it's like almost like it was serious graft in Dubai as well. In the heat, it was very hot, and it was like if you're not doing something, you're inside because it was that warm, and it was just so amazing, and it almost felt like a reward. I don't know if that sort of, because you work hard to get to where you are, and they say, right, we're going to take you to Dubai, and you work to get into the squad to go to Dubai, and then you're in there, and it's like, oh my God. And then they're like, we're going to do some like wicket keeping. Do you want to come and wicket keep with the men? And it just all felt very integrated and inclusive, and it was the coaches all on the same coach, and you've got Liam Livingston who's just whacked, was it 75 off 35, crazy batter who was like 3 seats behind you and the coach, and it was such an amazing experience, and it felt like you belonged there. And I think they've really worked hard to make sure that it wasn't Lancs are in Dubai and we brought Thunder with them. Do you know, it was Lancs and Thunder were both in Dubai, were both
very equal.
So equal. We had Ellie, who's our skipper, was on one side of the coach, and then there was a Lancs male player on the other side, and it was such an amazing opportunity. and it was so supportive, and we got to play cricket in Dubai. I feel like I could have just said that.
Just 3 words.
Just leave it there. It was so amazing. It was such an amazing experience.
What more could you want, eh?
I mean, there was sun every day. You didn't have to check the weather forecast and
Everything. It sounds amazing.
it was a crazy experience.
Well, thank you very much for that. A little bit jealous now too, but you know.
I am as well. I'm not still there. Go back.
Now, Julie, you'll probably be touching on the same kind of things that Alice just said. You've been part of the Change the Game campaign. Now, if you aren't aware, the Change the Game campaign, it's been there making sure that the men and the women's team as equal as possible. And you really were fronting that too. Now you're part of the game back. You know, Manchester United women versus Everton, it was a special occasion. I was there too. It was amazing. There was over 30,000 people at Old Trafford watching the women's team play. How good was that for you, and what's it like seeing elite women's sport transform over the years, especially because you played internationally too, so how good is it to see the change?
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I think it's incredible to see the journey. I think just being in the room and hearing some of the stories from the previous panel, and I think Claire touched upon it, you know, my experience was very much train in the morning, go to work, go to train at night, repeat, 5-6 days a week, and then go play games. So I think for me the evolution of the game has obviously accelerated so much in the last kind of 10 years. I mean, certainly since my retirement. I won't give away my age by thinking that. But when I was playing, you know, I always was really frustrated by the fact that we didn't have visibility, that we didn't have anyone to amplify us, that we didn't have people to market us. So rather than me getting involved in the kind of usual things that an athlete would get involved in terms of coaching and maybe going through that pathway, I was really focused on the digital growth at the time, which was massive. I was all about search engines. Again, won't reveal my age when I tell you how old I was when I got involved in that. Just saw the opportunities there and could really see where the value was, and kind of my growth in the game was started off kind of promoting one of kind of Scotland's best teams at that time, and continued to be Glasgow City, who again have really trailblazed in terms of what's happened in Scotland in women's football, but then actually going back to national team. So I was national team as a player, but then became kind of digital marketing lead for the whole national team set up, including men's and women's. So really started to bring some of those kind of marketing elements together. Was really fortunate to get an interview at United, and then obviously came to United, and then have been really fortunate to be part of the whole Manchester United journey as the women's team. I'm a United fan, so combining women's football and Man United was like, I remember when we got the application, which is like 4 years to the day almost, I think it was May 2018, running into like my boss's office, and Ali Edge, who's our director of band, and being like, I don't care what you do, you have to get me on that project. I don't care who I have to push out the way. So my kind of role in Manchester United women's team in particular, and obviously I work closely across the whole of Manchester United in terms of men's football and campaigns, but for the women's team it was setting the whole brand strategy, how we wanted to represent the team, the way that we wanted to deliver them, have led all of their kind of big brand campaigns. When we launched the team, we wanted it to be about the collective, and really sending that message that, you know, this was a team in Manchester and it was a team that was here to stay. But also, as Sarah rightly touched upon, that it was rooted in Manchester. So it was really important us to continue the values of Manchester United. So having homegrown players, thinking about our DNA, thinking about our youth players. And then in the last 4 years, through in 2 years of a pandemic, it's been all about just trying to market the girls and promote the girls in the right way, and doing it at the right time as well. I think there's an inevitability about women's sport where there's assumptions made that we don't do enough and we don't market. And I think at United, we made a conscious effort in those first couple of years not to accelerate marketing around the women's team, because anyone who's associated with Manchester United, it's, I think, again, someone touched upon it, it is the biggest club in the world. The pressure that comes from representing that crest sometimes is intense. So you combine that with female footballers who have come from amateur backgrounds into professional backgrounds. We didn't want to accelerate them straight away and put all this marketing pressure on them, and then all of a sudden, you know, they start to feel that pressure over football. So for us, and at the time, working with Casey, it was really important for us to allow the football to breathe, to allow that to really set that foundation for us to then grow. Fast forward 4 years, you know, we've kind of cemented our position in the WSL. We're continuing to challenge for those Champions League spots and hopefully for more titles. But Change the Game was about us stepping out of that project phase and us stepping out of what has been that initial foundation to really start to make a statement, to look at our values as a club. So what we stand for, how we represent the women's team, how we do that in equal measure, and Annie and Colette, who is also a really core component of that, is how that weaves through the whole infrastructure of the club. And Change the Game essentially is three phases. It's about what we do as Manchester United, so a club, and what our values are and how we represent the team within, but also how we represent the team externally. So the way that we push the team, and Old Trafford was a great catalyst for that, because we were able for the first time to play in front of fans. We were able to present the team in the way that we wanted. And then the third part of that campaign is all about grassroots and really looking at the community and how we activate. So I think, the initial phase of the campaign, again, was the catalyst for Old Trafford. We've seen unbelievable successes for that. I think in terms of even the reach of the campaign, it reached almost 100 million people. It's hit, over 4 or 5 million, between 4 and 5 million engagements. So, it's a campaign that's reaching its scale. The second phase of that goes live around the Women's Euros, so look out for that on July the 4th. And then the next phase of that is, again, looking at how we, as I say, integrate everything around our academy and everything that we're doing on a grassroots level, because that is, for us, the evolution of Manchester United. It's everything that we stand for, and the women's team are such a critical component of that, whether we are marketing them on social media, whether we are going into the community and offering trials and inspiring that next generation, or whether we're challenged for Champions League spots. So our goal with Change the Game is to ensure that internally we believe and show that commitment and show that dedication, but externally that we present the team in a really powerful way alongside everything that we're doing across all the age levels.
Sounds like an amazing plan, and we can't wait to see what else happens. So thank you very much for that. Now, Lauren, on to you now. So we'll want to know about Sale Sharks, sportswomen and all that lot. What barriers have you faced? And if you could do one thing to grow women's rugby, what would it be?
Oh, such a great question. I suppose something that was already highlighted by Claire earlier in terms of probably the biggest and the most obvious barrier for us at the minute is we are semi-professional. We have a team full of veterinarians, physios, teachers, coaches, and people who work within the Sale Sharks community as well. And you just described there, Julie, in terms of when you were playing, training in the morning, going to work, training in the evening. I was explaining to Claire, I was up at 5 a.m. this morning to go over to Leeds to do my job, working with Leeds Rhinos Rugby League Club. And then typically during the season, we'd come to training at 4:30, and then we wouldn't get home till 10 o'clock at night. And then you start again the next day. So unfortunately, that's the stage where we're at in terms of rugby in this country at the minute. It's massively growing and progressing. Obviously, all the English international women are full-time professional. The Welsh have just turned professional, and so have a number of other teams across the world. And it's moving in the right direction. And the Allianz Premier 15s that we play in with Sale Sharks is easily the best league in the world as well, and it's slowly progressing into contracting players and to being professional, but I still think there's a few years there to go. So that's definitely the biggest barrier, to try and manage, training and trying to be as elite, as professional, and to go through, all your recovery strategies and everything while doing the roles that we do. Up until a year ago, I was a full-time performance nutritionist with British Cycling, so trying to manage travelling and supporting Olympic and Paralympic athletes at the same time as trying to be an athlete myself, in terms of even just the basics of the logistics, the annual leave, the travel around the country and around the world as well was, really, really challenging. No better place to have a supportive environment to help me to do that, but at the same time, really challenging for different priorities. And then last year I decided to kind of focus a little bit more on kind of developing myself. So I'm now doing a full-time PhD, as well as doing some performance nutrition work in rugby league. So again, that brings challenges. Annual leave doesn't really exist in research. But again, there's benefits to that as well in terms of being ingrained in my experience in the sport. But just trying to manage the day-to-day life, the logistics, the amount of Excel sheets I have with all the different parts of my life, and trying to keep everyone up to date with everything is challenging. And unfortunately, the things that always get compromised is your personal life and things like that. And I play internationally for Ireland as well. So, for example, with the Six Nations that happens every year, that's Friday morning till Sunday night for training camps that you're travelling back to Ireland. And then you've got to fit in pretty much 2 full-time jobs then in the other 4 days a week. And then when you're actually playing the games, that's 5 games over 6 weeks when you're away 5 days a week and with no annual leave. Yeah, it can be pretty challenging. I suppose for me, in terms of growing the game, a big thing is obviously pushing that professionalism. It is great to see the likes of your football, the United Women, and like Lancashire and so many different sports now pushing that professionalism, and hopefully that is the inspiration then for younger girls and those role models then to aspire to be a professional rugby player or sportswoman in the future. I think for me, what was touched on by Claire earlier as well in terms of those stereotypes in rugby in particular that you've got to break down, it's more so I find when you're talking about young kids, it's actually the parents and the amount of times that you kind of talk to parents, to mums and dads of kids, and they're like, oh, I'd never let my girl play rugby. Yeah, my son, he can play rugby, that's fine, but I'd never let my girl, and almost that stereotype of whether it's weaker, girls are weaker or not able to tackle or not able to, or they don't want their young girls to get involved. I think it's more the parents and that exposure that you need to change those biases in particular. And for me, not only in terms of the role models and that exposure at the top level, but I think it's trying to expose young girls at a younger age group in schools in particular, to have more programs like the likes of the Sail Sharks community group that goes into loads of schools across the community and tries to just get girls to give it a go and give it a try, and it's not as scary as you think, and yeah, it's really enjoyable, and there's so many major benefits to being part of a team sport. Not only that, but also one of the biggest things I love about rugby is that there's a position for everyone, no matter your height, your weight, your skill level, your fitness level, there is a position on the pitch for you. And there's some great parts of the rugby community, and I think the more young girls we can inspire to get involved, I think, yeah, the better we all will be for it.
Sounds great, and with all those jobs as well, I feel tired just hearing about it. So fair play to you. So thank you very much for that. Now, Beth, you are an ex-elite player and now a senior business leader at the ECB. You're head of the 100 women's competition. Now, tell me what you believe the 100 has done for cricket, not just for women's elite sport, but as a whole. You know, it's been broadcast live on BBC last year, and I really want to know as well, what do you think about Thunder being the headliner for tonight and all these game-changing moments for us?
Yeah, I think first of all, I'm enjoying my job title on here, look, head of the 100 women. I'd love to be head of 100 women. For those of you who don't know, the 100, it's a brand new domestic cricket competition that was launched last year by the ECB. We've got 8 new teams, men and women shared platform. And I think, you know, we had a lot of success with that last year. It was a big impact moment for the game. I think we talk about transformational moments in women's sport a lot at the moment. But for cricket, it really was a game changer. I think everything from sort of really driving performance standards on the field and seeing that quality come through to inspiring young girls to really believe that cricket is a game for them, and really normalising, like we talked about, perception changes that need to happen there, but really normalising cricket as a balanced sport for men and women on the big stage. Like, they're 2 really key things. But I think actually, like, from my perspective, the biggest impact that the 100's had is around that audience growth piece. So I think we saw over 260,000 people throughout the competition come through and watch the women's matches. Average attendance of 8,000 per game. Like, that is enormous numbers for domestic women's sport in this country, and I think it actually it took us by surprise a little bit, but you know, that shouldn't be a surprise moving forwards. And I think in terms of, you know, broadcast reach, over 8 million people through our broadcast partners, Sky and the BBC. So in terms of that visibility piece and really turbocharging the profile of women's cricket, you know, the 100, it's given us a platform to do that. It's given us like immediate scale to domestic women's cricket, which is really exciting. And I think, you know, in terms of what's happening here this evening and the fact that the women are playing seconds, like, that's again just another opportunity to try and get women's cricket in front of as big an audience as possible. And I think, you know, there's lots of things that everybody's working incredibly hard on to really drive growth around women's sport at the moment. I think one of the big things that we are looking at is around how we can really drive the commercialisation of cricket. And definitely that audience, those number of people watching is a really important part of that. And I mean, it's been amazing to see what's going on at Manchester United Women in particular and sort of across the WSL. And I think, you know, what we've seen through rugby, the women's TikTok Six Nations, like incredible crowds, incredible attendances, and that's really driving us actually as a sport forwards. And I just can't wait for the UEFA Women's Euros this summer. I think they're really, you know, they're coming at us like a tidal wave. And I think that's really important actually as an industry, how we can all rise together. So in a way, I'm sort of slightly jealous, I'm quite competitive, I'm looking over rugby, football, like we're all kind of competing here, but we're not. We're just trying to like raise the profile of women's sport and just really normalise it for young girls. Because I know, probably similar to a lot of women in this room, like I definitely grew up in an environment where I was the anomaly down at my local cricket club. I was the only girl in my team. I was very fortunate, very well looked after through that team and sort of ended up playing in the men's teams, etc. But that club now has a women and girls section and it's thriving. And actually just moved back into the area having lived in London for a few years with my young family and my wife, and she's now down at the cricket club playing and I'm the one going to watch her play, so I'm retired now. But it's just so brilliant to see, and I think that kind of that perception shift, that normalisation, those things that we can do, moments like this evening, big stage, big platform, are really important. And then I think the last thing is just around, you know, I'm a firm believer in how sport has the ability to drive culture forwards and to really sort of be at the forefront of societal shift. And I think we're seeing that now, actually. I think, you know, the world is changing, like we've heard from some brilliant business women here this evening, and I'm certainly very inspired. But, you know, the ambition here is that we won't have to have panels like this in a few years' time. And, like, don't get me wrong, I love doing them, I love speaking, but, you know, when we can get to a point where we don't have to talk about the hardship and the challenge, that's when we know like we've got there. And I think that is happening. And I think, you know, in my day-to-day role, everything that we can do at ECB and working with our partners, so working with Lancashire and everything that's going on at Thunder, to just, drive that profile and that visibility piece is what we're trying to do. So we're at a really exciting point. And I think this summer in particular, you know, it's, you know, Commonwealth Games, Euros, everything else that's going on, like we're at a tipping point. So we've just got to keep going now and driving forwards.
Thank you very much. Now, a big thank you to everyone that is on this panel now and everyone on the last panel too. It's been some inspirational knowledge that we've all got, and I hope everyone that's been joining us today has got something from this too, because it's been great really. And I love the competition now, you know, the cricket, the rugby, the football. We all want to know what's happening next, don't we?
Each other up.
It's going to be a very exciting year, that's to say the least it is. But a big thank you very much. And now it's time for us to obviously go and support Thunder, because we're all rooting for Thunder to do well tonight, aren't we? We definitely are. So thank you very much, and a big round of applause to everyone. Thanks for joining us.